Dr. Cromwell, welcome to the podcast. Really great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Is it possible that you could diagnose a healthy or an unhealthy liver by the sound it emits?
This is for people who are who have developed a sensitivity to the energetic world. We can take the sound for the liver, and if it would come over the liver and start to sound discordant, the liver was thirsty, it was hungry, it needed this sound. In Ayurveda, we learned that there are 5 bodies. There's the physical body, and then there are 4 subtle bodies. So in Western medicine, we're really only getting the insights to 20% of the picture.
Today's guest is Dr. Mandara Cromwell. She was an entrepreneur, researcher, inventor, and author. She studied early cymatic therapy with British osteopath Peter Guy Manners and was awarded the Diplomat of Cymatic Bioenergetic Medicine at Bretforton Hall in the UK. She later received her doctorate of cymatic medicine through Medicina Alternativa in 2004. Dr. Cromwell coined the term Cymatherapy to distinguish between cymatics, which is the study of wave phenomena, and the therapeutic application of specific sound frequencies. She has made it her life's work to take Dr. Manners' efforts to greater heights through ongoing research, education, and collaboration. Her company, Cyma Technologies, as envisioned by Dr. Cromwell, is a futuristic, spiritually inspired company which manufactures sound therapy devices to create vibrant health, jobs of the future, and new ways of thinking. Her mission is to be one of the many seeking to change the face of healthcare in America and the world through advanced sound technology. She's also the founder of the International Sound Therapy Association, which is a nonprofit organization and promotes the science of cymatics through conferences, products, and educational courses. Dr. Cromwell, welcome to the podcast. Really great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So the first thing I'd like you to explain for us is what is cymatics in the first place? A lot of people have never heard of it. So what is it?
Cymatics is a word that was coined by Dr. Hans Jenny, a Swiss medical doctor and natural scientist. And it comes from the Greek word chema, which means wave. And cymatics as a science is now known as the science of making sound visible. So, we can see light, but we cannot see sound. So within the audible range, we have been able to take certain sounds and feed them through what we call a cymoscope or a tonoscope, as Dr. Jenny used in his experiments, and make those sounds visible. And so sounds that are very pleasing to us usually make beautiful geometric formations, but sounds that are a little dissonant will have a little bit of chaos to them. So with those very simple principles, we can kind of take a look at what types of sound really help us in our life and what types of sound maybe we use for different purposes.
It's so interesting that sound that is pleasing has a nice rhythm to it, or it's a nice visual, right? And it's organized, but the sounds that are not pleasing are chaotic. That's such an interesting effect. But how do we visualize sound? Like what is the medium by which we do that?
Well, in ancient times, I believe they did these cymatic experiments when they were creating the temples and architecture, where they would take maybe sand or different particles and create some form of sound underneath it to create that geometric shape. What we do today is we use not only the mediums of sand, salt, lycopodium powder was one of Dr. Jenny's favorite mediums, but also we use water. So what I use in when I have the images from my devices made visible, we use water. Because it creates those shapes, those little standing waves that appear on the surface of the water are the visual representation that we like to capture and focus on. And so it's a great type of meditation or great information because we process 400 billion pieces of information every second.
Mm.
And so when we see these visuals, they're actually imprinting on our visual cortex. And in this case, they're nice, healthy images. And so this sends a cascading effect throughout our whole physiology. The communication systems that we have within our own body are absolutely amazing. And so this is one of the ways we use sound through the science of cymatics to help us with our health.
Right. So in other words, you take a sound frequency, put it through maybe a cymatic plate or put it into something that's going to vibrate water, and then you see the frequency visually, right? But it's not, and so I'm imagining when sound travels, it's not traveling in two dimensions like we might see it on a plate or in water, right? It's three-dimensional?
Well, it has been said that sound is actually a bubble rather than a wave. My colleague John
Ah,
Reed
okay.
has made that hypothesis. And so it's kind of like if you've ever looked at MRIs or 3D cone beams, if you've been to a dentist recently, a lot of them are using those. So what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing in cymatics of the geometries on top of the water, it's kind of the slice of the sound bubble. Kind of like the MRI, they're going through slices of the tissue so we can get a good representation of what's going on there.
Yeah, and I want to get back to that, just, sound and tissue and that, because I know you've done a lot of work on that area. But before we get into that, I want to talk a couple other things that you've done. One is your book, Soundflower, which is related to what we were just talking about. Tell us about Soundflower. I had a chance to look at it when we were in Sarasota, and I thought it was such a cool book. So I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, Soundflower is my journey to marry science and spirit. I was one of those kids who grew up and very sensitive to sound and vibration all around me, and then have spent most of my life trying to marry that with spirit. When we're children and we have invisible friends or whatever, our parents say, "Oh, come on, you're just making that up." And, it was such a real experience for me when I would walk into the garden with my grandmother and she would be talking to the roses. I would go, there must be a science that really validates this type of communication system. So all of the things that happened to me in my book that I describe, I was always on this search of how is it that I really prove that I'm not crazy, that there's some science behind this. And then as the bonus, what I think is really the creme de la creme, piece de la resistance in my book are the cymatic images. So people tell me that they keep the book on their coffee table and just look at the images because they are images of health and healing. And just by looking at them, they emit great vibrations. So.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. Like different frequencies look like different flowers, and it was a really cool visual. So you mentioned it, so let's talk quickly about it. Because I also want to talk about your journey with your education in cymatics and then your technologies. But you mentioned that just looking at it can be healing. How does that work?
Well, the beauty. Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about the science of it and why it's called a sound flower. So, in the experiment or in the laboratory, where what's happening is there's like a transducer, and then there's a membrane or a little cuvette of water. And so the sound comes up and is projecting the frequencies in the water. And the camera and light are looking down from the top. So as we are viewing the sound manifesting in the water, it's actually flowering on top of the water. And so that's why I call them sound flowers, because these are healing frequencies. And in this case, they're a combination of five frequencies that are playing simultaneously. And if you think about it, we have a lot of flowers and plants in our garden, in nature, that have 5 petals, that have 5 leaves. That, anyway, 5 is really a predominant number if we get into the whole geometry and numerology and all of that. But 5 is a very significant number in mathematics and art. So now I'm going to move to why these images could have a physiological effect on our states of consciousness. And that is not only because they're representing the golden mean, the golden ratio, which we have this innate affinity for. So when we go to the Mona Lisa, or great Greek temples, or even in Egypt and India and all over the world, where they have these special architectural buildings that we're naturally drawn to. When we walk inside of them, we feel calm, we feel collected, we feel coherent. So there we have this 5 coming together. And so these images that I've created with these particular frequencies are all built on that golden ratio. And so we have this innate attractiveness to it. And then the beauty is a bonus. So again, these images are registering on our visual cortex, and they are sending messages consciously and unconsciously all throughout our body.
So the mechanism, in other words, is that the visual frequency is representative of the sound bubble or wave. And when we take that in through our eyes, it still sends that information to our visual cortex, not our auditory cortex, has a similar effect, in other words.
Exactly. So, the sound and the vibration, we're sensing that. That's, we're using all 5 senses really, other than the taste. But there are some people who say that they can taste sound. I have a granddaughter who says she can taste color. Synesthesia is one aspect of people who are on this earth and in our population. But yeah, we're seeing, we're feeling, we're hearing the sound, and this is why audible sound is so amazing for me to work with. All of the devices I create, all of the products that I produce are used with audible sound, and we have this great intelligence within our bodies that we know when a sound is good for us or not. So, when it doesn't sound right, it's, dissonant for us. We say, hey, let's change that station. And we know what's naturally healing for us. They even say that the frequencies of your voice can attract your mate. And so, we sound is a really complex area, John. So we could go in many different directions here. But
well, there's precedent for that in nature, right? I mean, animals use sound to attract mates, right? And so it's not that far fetched, for people who are listening. Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. So there's a whole lot that I want to get to there, but first I want to get into your journey a little bit. So you've got a doctoral degree in, is it cymatic therapy? Is that the study area?
Cymatic medicine. So
cymatic medicine, yes.
Right. So my background in early years is in art and architecture, and then I traveled to India and lived there for a while and began studying Ayurveda, which is the oldest medical system that still exists today, and then later Chinese medicine. So my background is more the perspective of holistic or natural medicines, where we're looking at the body, mind, and spirit as a whole unit. And then later in 2001, I met a British osteopath, Dr. Peter Guy Manners, who was in the twilight of his life. And he had been working with sound frequencies. After the Second World War, he was a medical doctor and went to Germany and studied worked in a clinic there with a collaborative group of researchers and medical scientists. And they gathered a body of work of certain sound frequencies that help support the body. So when I met him in 2001, I was really intrigued because sound and vibration had been part of my life all these decades. And now suddenly here's somebody who basically had a sound box to emit frequencies. And here's a really interesting thing. Um, when you go to his little clinic in the middle of the Cotswolds, or well, it's not there anymore, but when I would go there, the people in the surrounding areas, they really didn't have any idea of Western medicine other than what he had shared with them. So they would go to this, what they thought, a country doctor, and they had no concepts of. So if we think about that moving forward, I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but really this is, I think, where the whole area of vibrational and energy medicine is going. We are not only embracing what we know in Western medicine, but we're opening the box to say, what are the other possibilities? And, right now in Western medicine, when you go, they just, give you this one particular path to follow. But really, there are a lot more other avenues to consider. And I think that's where we're going. So my experience going to this clinic in the middle of the Cotswolds was like, these people had no idea that, Western medicine uh, existed. And of course, they didn't have really insurance and things like that dictated protocols or gold standards or anything like that. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. So through studying with Dr. Manners, he had an association with the organization called Medicina Alternativa, which is an organization that really took Western-based and Eastern-based medicines and brought them together kind of in the format that I was just describing, that there's more to it. We really need to examine all avenues that are possibilities for our health.
And it seems like a lot of those ancient modalities have been lost over time, mostly in favor of a more profitable motive, maybe, or something like that. That's just is what it seems to be to me. But yeah. So it seems like your collaboration with Dr. Manners was pivotal in developing your technologies, right? So you finish your degree program. You've must have had some sort of inspiration, ideation, something hit you, and you create these technologies. So tell us a little bit about those, what they do, the development of them, the challenges you've had, because I think as a show for entrepreneurs, your entrepreneurial journey is really quite remarkable.
Yes, well, as an entrepreneur, if you look up the the data sheet on entrepreneurs, we all sort of we have a passion and we're very goal minded.
Yeah.
If you have an idea, you feel very passionate about it. We're risk takers, we're adventurous, we're curious, and we make a lot of decisions from our gut. So my journey has really incorporated all of those things. So I started out, as I mentioned, from a child being interested in sound and vibration. And then after after being in India for a while and studying Ayurveda, came back to the United States, and this was basically unheard of. So I went into corporate America. And so that was beneficial for me as an entrepreneur because I do believe in systems. And so I think that it's beneficial for everyone to go into some type of structure to learn how that works and then take the best of that moving forward. And we are the captain of our own ship. So when we're designing a business, and I'm a big believer in not reinventing the wheel. If there are successful templates out there, get those and save yourself some time. Every successful business will tell you that they follow a business plan. You are not a successful entrepreneur if you don't have a roadmap. Now, that roadmap may change, and I'll give you a great example of how that changed for me in the development of one of my devices. So for Dr. Manners, I spearheaded a team and we created a specific uh, uh, sound technology for him as he wanted it. It was very great. It was great for the clinic and a clinician who wanted to spend one-on-one time with their patient. But here in America, our doctors need to see a lot of patients in a short period of time. A lot of people are looking for help. How are you going to meet the need and et cetera. So I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to make this invention more user friendly. So that's when I came up with the AMI series of devices where you sit in a chair, you put your feet on a platform where sound is emitted, and it kind of creates this sound grid, this lattice work around the body. And it's a very targeted approach for all systems of the body to bring them back into coherence. So here's where I'm going to share with you about so it's a great invention and it works really well. And so I went through all of the steps of, hiring people to prove that it worked. And, this is, and I can, so one day in a research proving that it works, I use thermography, which is thermal imaging. And so the thermographer that I had contracted, she had done mostly work with women and did early detection of breast health. And so and at the time, I was just looking at the lower extremities. I had already had success with a peripheral vascular disease study that was published. And so I thought, okay, in designing this new device, this new approach, I need to at least match that success. So she was there just looking at all the lower extremities, and she was seeing the decrease in inflammation and pain happening within one session. And so she said to me, she said, what would this do for my patients who have breast challenges? And, of course, my immediate inner voice, which, we need, as entrepreneurs, we need to listen to our inner voices. My immediate inner voice says, well, of course it would work. But, I couldn't say that. I said,
Right.
well, hey, let's line some up and let's do a study. And so she did. And of course, the sound is traveling all throughout the body, even though it's being applied through the feet. And this is the great body's communication system. But anyway, at this point, John, I want to say that my business plan was that I was going to sell this to the integrative medicine market.
Right.
I wanted to help healthcare professionals who were thinking outside the box, who were tired of seeing their patients not make rapid success. I wanted to target them so that they could really give the push to those patients so they could really get to a better quality of life. That was my market. That was my business plan. Yet here was this woman who said, hey, can it help these people, a real specific market? When that study was released, that data came in, the product flew off the shelves to private owners. I suddenly pivoted from knocking on the doors of integrative medicine to the general public. Then, and as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a small business person in particular, you're always tweaking your business plan.
Of course.
You're always looking at your roadmap. You're always looking at that blueprint of how are you building this house or creating the garden or the meal, or if you're a chef, how are you doing that? If you're a coach, everybody has a plan. So you have to tweak this plan when you're in the entrepreneurial process. So I had to go tweak my plan to go, oh my gosh, I have to chase this market now because so many calls were coming in from just regular people saying, hey, I want this product. So then I had this whole training and everything in position for the integrative healthcare professional. Suddenly, I had to go create a training and program support system for the general person. And so because that market just ran away and is still a significant part of my sales today, I have a whole team of advanced therapists where every owner of a device can call in for customer support. They can have free consultations to help them select the channels that are specific to their health goals.
Mm.
And so, anyway, whether some people are really significantly challenged in their health and some people are just interested proactively in health and longevity. And I have a whole segment of sports people who use the product. So,
Mhm.
anyway, I had to create, I had to run after that market because it was dragging me in a different direction.
Yeah, it's a great example of, finding that product market fit, right? You went out there thinking this was a B2C type of concept. You were going to sell into providers' offices. And then there was no, sorry, B2B. You thought you were going to sell the provider offices, and then you get a B2C market that is ravenous for this product. That's amazing. Yeah. So tell us about the line of products. So I want to hear about what these are, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into the science of how exactly they work and how we know they work, and what, how you can benefit from them and that sort of thing.
Oh, great. Well, I'm happy to talk about my products because
Yeah.
my passion, again, when we talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, we're very passionate about what we do. And, throughout my life, a common thread, even from younger years, has I love to help people. And so, even though I was involved in corporate America and some of that, I was always interested in health. And so, to help people with their health in a non invasive way and a way that empowers them. So, that's my mission statement in a nutshell. And so, I created a device using audible sound. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we all innately know what sound is right for us. Those sounds that feel good, those sounds that go, that stimulate us to a point where we feel moved, we feel transformed. So sound in general and music, of course, will tiptoe it over into the musical area. But what I use are sound frequencies. So they're emitting tones. And so I've taken these tones. There are 5 frequencies each. For example, there are 5 frequencies for the liver, 5 frequencies for the lungs, 5 frequencies for the colon and the pancreas, the thyroid, etc. Each system of the body with its specific organs, they all have 5 frequencies. And so I layer these frequencies through my research. Took quite a while to document, and I have you know, a storeroom full of journals of what works and what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and how to get the most effective response for people who have specific challenges. And so,
Now, well, let me just clarify. So you're saying that the liver vibrates at a certain frequency and the pancreas vibrates at a certain frequency. Is that right?
yeah, in my world,
Yeah.
each organ has its own special quintet.
Okay. So the five different
So
frequencies.
5 things. So imagine that we'll say that your liver in Chinese medicine, the liver is the general. So we,
Mm-hmm.
we say that the general is coming to the banquet, and the banquet has 5 dishes on
Mm-hmm.
it. Now your general may want more of dish 1 and 2 and a little bit 3, 4, and 5, but my general may come to the banquet and go, "Oh, I really need lots of 5 and a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
3." And so, because they are audible sounds, the frequencies that we don't really need pass on through. But yet, the whole support system is there. So, this is a little different. One question that I get a lot is, "Oh, is this the same as Rife?" Because there are a lot of Rife machines, and that tradition is out there. So this is really important to understand. There are different types of frequencies and different types of frequency generators, and they all emit their own specific type of waves. There are sine waves, sawtooth waves, square waves. Some frequencies, like the Rife, are to target pathogens
Mm.
and destroy those pathogens. We don't do that. In my system, with the AMI devices, we're doing the support. So when your liver is listening to that quintet, when the liver has those 5 dishes, the general has those 5 dishes to select from, then it's getting a little bit of all of those dishes, but it's really loving whatever it needs. The body has its own innate intelligence, which is why um, the acronym AMI devices, using acoustic sound, meridians, traveling the meridian pathways. Intelligence is the body's own innate intelligence to take those sounds wherever it's needed. Is that too
Yeah.
much?
No, no. Actually, we're just scratching the surface. I find this fascinating. So, is it possible that you could diagnose a healthy or an unhealthy liver by the sound it emits? I mean, 'cause I'm trained as a speech language pathologist, and as part of that training, we did a little bit of audiology, and the at the time I was going through my training, otoacoustic emissions was just becoming popular. So you could actually diagnose various hearing disorders based on the sound your inner ear makes. So I'm wondering, like, can you diagnose different conditions based on the sounds that are emitted from different parts of the body, or am I just way off there?
You're right on.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So, again, this is for people who are who have developed a sensitivity to the energetic world. They
Hmm.
can sense these things, and so we can take the sound for the liver, let's say, and if we put it over a person's liver, if it's sounding clear. So like in my original research, I used a separate applicator.
Hmm.
And then the applicator with the sound of the liver, we would hold it out. So we would bring it into the body. And if it would come over the liver and start to sound discordant, the liver was thirsty. It was hungry. It needed this sound. If it remained clear, we would move on to the next, depending on what we were doing with that particular patient, we would move on to the next code. And maybe it would be the gallbladder, because they're
Hmm.
paired in Chinese medicine. The liver and the gallbladder are partners. Or, if it was the spleen or the stomach, the pancreas, so you can hold it there, and if it sounds distorted, it's a longer process. So initially, that is the device that I made for Dr. Manners. So that took so long to teach people how to use it, and then people would doubt that they could really hear
Hmm.
that. So what I did then is I go, hey, I'm not helping very many people with this method. If my goal is to really help as many people as possible with sound in their overall health, I'm going to have to figure out a system of layering these frequencies, that if there's a general discomfort in one area, that this particular set of frequency protocol covers that whole area. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, and it strikes me that it's really interesting, the intersection between Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, Western medicine. Western medicine seems to treat the body like a mechanical device, like a car, right? You put something in it, you fix the actual mechanical thing, and that's what we do. Whereas Ayurveda and Chinese medicine are more holistic, and we're talking about like bathing the body in something, or immersing it in something, versus taking a wrench or a scalpel to it. So it's a different way of looking at the body and its healthy system.
Well, in Ayurveda, we learned that there are 5 bodies.
Mm.
There's the physical body, and then there are 4 subtle bodies. So in Western medicine, we're really only getting the insights to 20% of the picture.
Yeah,
So
that's what
when
it seems like, right? Yeah.
Right. So that's why we, and there are parts of Western medicine, I believe today, who that are making a shift into taking a look at other parts of our health. We have the body, mind, spirit, the physical and the more subtle bodies. I just was speaking to another healthcare practitioner the other day, and she was a former sonographer, ultrasound person,
Mm-hmm.
and she was we were talking about the breast health studies that I had done where you could see, what was going on. And I shared with her what we found with all these women is that if they would go back 8 to 12 years, they could most likely identify the emotional component
Hmm.
that started that. So
Wow.
I want to go to an Ayurvedic principle here in the five bodies. So we have the physical body, we have the it's called the pranamaya kosha, the anamaya, or the manomaya kosha, and the vijnanamaya. And then we have the spiritual connection. Okay, which is it? There is in the vijnanamaya kosha the this high mental state. Something happens. It's called the mistake of the intellect.
Hmm.
Something happens in our thinking that we go off into another direction. And so that is immediately impacted in the emotional body. And so the emotional body then represents a trajectory of how to deal with this disturbance. But many times we don't pay attention to it. And so these women stuff it, stuff it, stuff it until 8 to 12 years later, something represents in a physical format in the upper torso. So
Yeah.
she said, interestingly enough, she said, "Oh my goodness," she said, "you won't believe this, but my own mother had breast cancer. And as a sonographer, she's the one who found it. The daughter is the one who found it.
Oh, wow.
And she, after the mother went through all of the breast trajectory of Western medicine, came to her daughter one day and said, I think it was my divorce of 10 years ago that started this. Now, this is
Hmm.
something that people just, if they listen to their body, they will see where did that turn. We could call it a wrong turn, but it's, of course, there are no mistakes in what we're experiencing in life. This is, if you have a terminal illness, this is a wonderful opportunity for you for your own healing, and then also
Hmm.
to share and impact others for their health. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Of course, and I was just thinking of some synthesizing information I've heard, in other areas. So, tell me what you think of this. I'm just sort of doing it out loud as I'm thinking it. But if thoughts have frequencies, right, and we know that pleasing sound, like we know what's a pleasing sound, we know what's a pleasing thought. If a thought has a frequency, could an unpleasing thought or a chaotic thought, a disorganized thought, eventually manifest in the body as a pathology of some sort?
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why it's
So
really,
yeah,
the
so thoughts
Buddha.
are important. Yeah, it's much more than just, hey, make sure you're managing your thoughts. It goes way beyond that, right? It could have very lasting implications.
Yes, and that is why the Buddha said,
Hmm.
become aware. Just that's all you need to do is become aware, awake to your awareness, and then you can manage those thoughts. And there are studies that say we spend, oh my goodness, an unbelievable amount of time thinking about the past, and an
Hmm.
unbelievable amount of time thinking about the future. But to just be in the present is really where we want to be.
Yeah, or worse yet, worrying about the future, right? Having chaotic or unorganized thoughts about the future versus maybe appreciative or something. Yeah, so I want to get back to your AMI devices. So I know you said they work on meridians, and you talked a little bit about the waves and that sort of stuff. So get into it a little bit more in terms of how exactly they work. What sort of like if somebody were to buy this online, what would be like a typical use case if there is such a thing, or what have do you have some really interesting recovery stories or application stories that you could share? I think this is just a fascinating suite of devices.
Well, I do have some recent research that just came in last
Okay.
week that I'm really excited to share with you. It hasn't been written up or published. We're still putting it together. But let me, first of all, share with you that the devices that I create are considered by the FDA as Class 1 devices, which
Okay.
means that you don't need a prescription to own one.
Okay.
And what I can claim is that these devices will help relieve stress and pain.
Okay.
So, beyond that, I can't make any medical claims, but I will share with you some of the wonderful side effects or the benefits that we
Yeah.
have noticed in our preliminary research, which is what we call it, because we're still outside of the box, John, with vibrational medicine. So
Yeah.
what we found from the very get-go was that it was a decrease in pain and inflammation. So if you, for those of your listeners who aren't familiar with the body's process, chronic inflammation is at the core of every degenerative condition that we can think
Hmm.
of. Your autoimmune, your neurological, your cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of them. We're
Really.
all dealing, and actually everybody every day deals with some runaway inflammatory component because of our
Hmm.
environment and the food, our food choices. So we try to make
Hmm.
the very best we can, but that old friend inflammation kind of seems to be there a lot. So if we can diminish inflammation, that's a huge benefit for everyone. And if we can diminish emotional and physical pain, that is a tremendous help for everyone.
Hmm.
And so when we do even just the stress relief channel, which is channel 1, we find in channel 1, I've layered lots of frequencies for not only the physical body, but also the mental and the emotional and spiritual
Hmm.
bodies. So after people do the stress channel for 6 weeks, they say, gee, people that used to push my buttons, triggers that I once had, they don't seem to be bothering me anymore.
Hmm.
And they say, oh, my digestion seems to be improved. I don't have that acid reflux or
Hmm.
something like that. So basically, what's happening here is that we're taking the body as a whole and we're calming each component of that system. So the general stress channel is sounds so vanilla, but it is so powerful. And so those are some of the benefits that we have with channel 1. Channel 2 and 3 are inflammatory pain and
Hmm.
musculoskeletal pain, which a lot of our people have joint pain, back pain. We have sports injuries. Some of us who are weekend warriors, we're not really known as sports people, but what we do have professional sports people who use the device. But yeah, just daily aches and pains to help relieve those. So what we see with inflammation using thermal imaging, and thermal imaging is a way that you can look into the body and track the vascular activity without actually invading or causing anything harmful to the body, like drinking dyes or things like that. And so we can see that even in one session of the AMI device, that inflammation begins to diminish.
Wow.
So that is really powerful.
And how do you measure that? So you say it diminishes. Is it like you're measuring biomarkers like C-reactive protein, or is it like a bedside kind of exam, or how do you do that?
Yeah, well, some of the people do measure C-reactive protein. So we have partnered with some medical professionals that would like to do that. What
Yeah,
I started doing was using thermal imaging. So this is a particular
that's what I was
camera
just. Okay, I
that
see.
watches the vascular activity, and so it's great. I have lots of the thermal imaging pictures on the
Gotcha.
Cyma Technologies website, so you can see the before and after. So
Right.
if in the thermal imaging frame the body is looking red or white,
Mm-hmm.
that's really hot. That means
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of inflammation going on there. And then after the session, we scan the person again, and you can see that the inflammation is diminishing. So that was the first clue for
Gotcha.
that. But and then we followed people for a 6-week protocol.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, but there are physicians who will do C-reactive protein and other markers, blood markers, to track that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the first thing, and then we had, a study where a third-party study where they used some of my frequencies for blood, just emitting these sounds on blood, and it increased cell viability by 365%. Now you go, well, what does that really mean
Wow.
for people who aren't familiar looking under a microscope at these things? The cell
Mm-hmm.
viability means that the cell is healthier for a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm.
The cell wall is more permeable. So that beautiful dance that the cell does of taking in nutrition and excreting metabolic waste is it makes it easier for that. It's when stress and inflammation come, that cell wall kind of clamps down and is hardened, and the
Right.
cell gets so stressed out that it goes to sleep. So these sounds that are emitted apparently massage the cell wall
Yeah.
and wake it up, give it the kiss of life, and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, come on back and do the rest of your life cycle.
Wow. That, I mean, so,
So
so it sounds like it's minimizing senescence in the cells or zombie cells, right? Which of course is something that we know from longevity science is super important for for healthy lifespan. So it sounds like that channel is on your device is just a really great way to get there.
it's great. And then also, we found that it increases the blood oxygen by 15%.
Oh wow.
So, hey,
Hmm.
that is really good. And, we had some great responses of people who went through the pandemic who had our devices, and we got great feedback from them about, and then we do have a segment of the population who have contacted us about the long haul effects of their respiratory system. And so they're reporting really great things. And let's go on over to our pets, because our pets who live near us, our cats, our dogs, our whatever we have around us, they're in our environment, and they are vibrational beings. When
Yeah.
we're anxious and, stressed out, you see our dogs, they're kind of, and our cats are, doing their thing. And so we have people who own the AMI devices who send us pictures with their cat or their dog is on their lap while they're doing the session. We had one woman write in and say her dog was standing by the AMI device in their living room barking to come turn it on.
Wow.
So anyway, but yeah, so we have some really great stories. I will tell you one very exciting thing that we love, working with all healthcare professionals and coaches and whatever they would like to track. So this one chiropractic physician called and said she would like to do a study on the 12 cranial nerves.
Hmm.
So this is from C1 to C12, and for those who aren't familiar with those very important parts of our spine, those nerves connect through some really important pathways, and one of them is all of us who are on our phones and we're bent like this.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
cuts off signaling
Mm.
Another one cuts off signaling to, the eyes, the ears, the digestion, the everything. So anyway, to put this really short, so you can understand it, out of 13 participants, there are, well, first of all, I should say there's a standard neurological test. I mean, you can go online. It has to do with smell and anyway, all
Mm-hmm.
these. So that you can go on the Mayo and all these health organizations have the standard neurological test that you can go through and see what's operating and what's not. So out of 13 subjects, 44 of these markers were abnormal. After one session on the AMI device, 37 of them came back to normal.
Wow.
That's like 84%.
Yeah. And how long is a session? Like how long did
30
they?
minutes,
30 minutes. Wow.
a 30-minute
Wow.
session. Right. So now that chiropractic physician is so excited about this success. And, so now she's taken those subjects and told them the great response. I said, no, you can't tell them. You can't tell them. Don't
Right.
tell them you can't. Take those same 13 and then put them on a 6-week study, which is, what we recommend. We hear the sound. It's kind of like the first time you hear a nice music, a nice song comes on the radio that you really like. You go, oh, I'd like to hear that again because I want to know the words. I really want to know the rhythm, etc.
Yeah.
So the more you play the session over 6 weeks, then the cell develops memory.
Mm.
And so and then we have a lot of cell cycles that are, in a 6-week period, et cetera. So
Yeah.
we recommend that people do a 30-minute session 3 to 5 times a week for 6 weeks if they're dealing with something in particular that they really want to track.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a great on the cranial nerves. I thought really looking forward to looking at all the nerves.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to read more about the research you're putting out and that kind of thing. It's really it's a cool area of study. Like I said, I went to that ISTA conference just because I'm interested in this, and it was really my first introduction to all of this, and it fascinated me. So, thank you for all your work you're doing in it. It's very cool.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
John. Thanks for allowing me to share with it.
If people are interested in learning more about you and your work and what you do and your devices, where can they find you?
Yes, my website is Cyma Technologies. That's with a C,
Okay.
Cyma technologies.com. And I invite them to come and I have a free Cyma glyph if they would like to see a sound made visible image and use it to help them meditate. As an entrepreneur, it's really important for us to take care of our own inner guidance and to stay tuned in with that. And we do that through meditation. Of course, there are thousands of studies published on the value of meditation. But as an entrepreneur, we owe it to ourselves to tune into that very special state because, as a wise man once told me, all of our questions are answered in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we get to the heart? Well, we have to be still and listen. So, on my website, to help people who say they can't meditate or they don't know how to meditate, there is a sound flower image that they can download, and it gives you a few simple steps of how to utilize it. And, fall into that wonderful state for a few minutes every day, a couple times a day if you can, to stay connected to what your higher vision is.
Wow, that's great. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
I think you covered it, John. You are good.
Well, thank you so much. Well, Dr. Cromwell, we really appreciate your time. This, for me, super interesting, and I hope for a lot of the entrepreneurs listening, it was as well. So thank you.
Thank you.